going on, guys? So welcome to part 2 of this project. It is a couple hours later, but we'll get right back to where we were. So we have our tracks. We're fetching them from the API. If I reload, we'll get a little spinner until we get the response back, and then it loads all of our tracks. So I think the next part that I want to do, I think we should take care of the lyrics page before we get into like the search and we dispatch to the context so that we can update the tracks. Let's just do the lyrics component, which will have its own route. So let's jump into VS Code, and in the components folder, in the tracks folder, I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to call it lyrics.js. So this will be its own component, and it'll also be the page for the route. And the route is going to be, if we look at the track component, you can see I have it go to lyrics/track/ and then the track ID. Okay, so what we'll do is just create our lyrics component real quick, which is going to be a class-based component. Okay, I'm just going to export this down here. I think there's a way that you can do this with the extension I use, but I haven't really looked into it. If anyone knows, let me know. To do the export down here. So for now, let's just put an H1 here. Let's say lyrics and save. And then let's go to our app.js, and we already have our router set up. So let's bring in the lyrics component that we just created. So we'll go ahead and bring that in, which is in the tracks folder. Lyrics, and the component name is lyrics as well. And then we're going to add that as a route. So right here, let's create a new route, and the path is going to be that path I showed you, which is lyrics, and you can make this whatever you want, of course, but I'm going to just say lyrics/track/, and then we're going to do :ID. Okay, so it's going to be the track ID, and then the component that's going to be loaded is not track, it's going to be lyrics. All right, so that should do it for the route. Let me just check that, make sure that's right. Yeah, it looks right, so we'll save it. And now if we go back to Chrome, oops, I just reloaded it again. And we click View Lyrics. Now we have our lyrics component. Okay, now from here, what we need to do is we need to fetch the lyrics and the information for this particular track, and the track's ID is actually in the URL, so that's how we need to grab it. And with React Router 4, it's really easy. It's actually in the props. It's like props.match.params and then dot whatever the param is. In this case, it's ID. So we'll go back to our lyrics component and finish this up. Now this is going to have it's actually going to have some state, this component, some component level state, which is going to be the track, and also is going to be the lyrics. Okay, but we're actually going to make 2 requests from this component, because if we look at the API and we look at get lyrics and we look at what it gives us back, it gives us the lyrics body. And of course, like I told you in the beginning, it's not the full lyrics unless you pay them a premium. But there's no information about the actual track here, like the track name, the artist name, anything like that. What we're going to have to do is make a second request to this endpoint right here, track.get, which will get us all of that stuff. Okay, so that when we have the lyrics page, like if we go to the final project here and we go to the lyrics page, we can have like Natural, which is the song name, by Imagine Dragons, which is the artist name. We can have this other stuff too. So we have to make basically 2 requests from this component. So if you guys are confused on why I'm using track and lyrics in the component state rather than in the application level context state of the provider class, it's because I only need this information. I only need this data for this particular component. Okay, that's really where you want to separate your component level state from your application level state. If you only need it in this one place, there's no point in putting it into context.js. The reason I have the tracks here, or the track list I should say, is because I'm going to need this to change based on the search component. Okay, same thing with the heading. Once once we search for something, the heading should change as well, and we're going to be doing that from another component. Okay, so that's why I'm keeping this in the component state. So let's set up our component did mount, because that's where we want to make our request from. Okay, so basically when this lyrics component loads, we want to use Axios. So let's actually bring that in. So we'll import Axios from Axios. And then down here, we're going to do, actually what we could do is go to our context.js where we made our last request and just kind of copy this. So this Axios get, we get the response, we'll grab the catch. So all that stuff, we'll just grab that and put that right in component did mount. Now we want to hit a different endpoint because this endpoint is for chart.tracks.get. We don't want that. What we want to get is the lyrics for a particular track. And if we go back to, let's see right here, so track.lyrics.get, and we look right here, this is the endpoint. So it's track.lyrics.get, and then it has a parameter of the track ID. So I'm going to copy this. Now the track ID is actually in the URL right here, so we can actually grab that pretty easily. So let's just replace from here where it says chart.tracks, and we don't need any of these parameters except for the API key at the end. So you just want to keep the ampersand API. So we'll get rid of that and then paste the new endpoint in, which is track.lyrics.get, track ID equals, and we want to replace this hard-coded track ID with an expression or a variable, which is going to be this dot props dot match dot params dot ID. Okay, and what this is going to do is it's going to get the ID parameter from the URL, and that's the track ID, because if we look at our track component, that's what we passed in right here, lyrics slash track slash, and then we passed in the track ID. Okay, so let's see, our API key should be all set. As for the response, let's see, we're going to want to, I will console log it, but let's also, let's see, let's set the state. You know what, let's just console log it for now. I'm going to comment this out, and let's just save this, and let's load up the lyrics page for one of the tracks. Okay, so let's see, this should be it. So we're going to get it twice, but the first one, actually, let me see, lyrics. All right, so this actually did give us the lyrics. Why is it loading twice? Oh, I think this is coming from a different place. Oh, this is the track list that we're still logging this. I'm actually going to go to context.js, and I don't want to log that out anymore. So right here, I'm just going to comment that out because it's getting a little confusing. So this is what's coming back from the request for lyrics. Okay, so we get the lyrics body. We get some other stuff here like lyrics copyright, if it's explicit, stuff like that. All right, so that takes care of fetching the lyrics. Now, what about the track data, like the name, the artist name, stuff like that? So what we need to do is make another request. So we could do a couple things. We could use axios.all, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go right under, let's see, we want to go inside the then. Oh, first thing we want to do is set the state, right? So we got that stuff back. I'm in the wrong file, aren't I? Yeah, we want to go, let me just close all this up. So we want to be in lyrics.js. Okay, so we want to put what we get back into the lyrics object. Okay, and just to show you one more time what we get back, we get message body lyrics, and then we get basically just an object with all this stuff. So we want this to go into our component state right here. So I'm going to uncomment this set state, and we're going to set lyrics, and we're going to set it to res.data.message.body.lyrics, and that'll put that in the state. Okay, and I'm not going to console log this anymore. We just want to put it in the state. And then after we set the state, we're actually going to return another Axios request to get the track data. So let's say return, and then actually I'll just copy this Axios. So return axios.get. I'm just going to put this up here. Yeah, so we want to do that. Except now we don't want the lyrics, we want the track info, which will come from, let's see, it comes from track.get, I believe. Is that right? Track.get, right here, track.get, and then the track ID. So we can simply just change, instead of track.lyrics.get, we just want to do like that, track.get. Okay, now since we're returning this from this dot then, the way that this works is we can just put another dot then to get the result of that second call. Okay, so we'll say dot then result, and let's console.log, and let's log res.data and see if that works. So now we should log the track data. So if we go back and we take a look in the body, there it is, track. Okay, so now we have access to like the artist name and all that stuff. Now we want to put that in the other piece of state, okay, or the other value of state, which is track. We already filled lyrics right here, so we want to do the same with the track. So I'm going to copy this set state, and we're going to go right in here. We don't need this console log anymore, so I'm just going to paste this in. We're going to change this to track, and we want message.body.track. Okay, so now we're setting both of these, track and lyrics, and then we can do what we want with them in the render. Now we have this .state.track and this .state.lyrics. They should be full with whatever we get from the response. So I'm going to use a little destructuring to pull those out of the state so we can just use those variables. So let's say const track and lyrics we want to pull out of this .state. Okay, now we're going to have the same issue you had with the tracks component, where we have to have an if statement and just load a spinner before we actually get the response. Because if I do a console log here of track inside the render, and we go back, you'll see, just ignore this line here, but you'll see that it's empty at first. Okay, so if this object is empty, then we want to show the spinner, and then when we get the response back, which is all this stuff, then we want to display it in the DOM here. So we're going to have to do another if statement. We're going to have to take into account both track and lyrics. So I'm going to get rid of the console log. I'm also going to get rid of the return, and we're going to say if we're going to check basically 4 things here. We want to check if both are undefined. So if undefined, and we should be doing or, so double, what the hell are these called? Pipe characters. And lyrics is equal to undefined. Or, now to test and see if this is an empty object, we don't want to do track equals like that. That's not going to work because this is not the same as this, okay? Because it's not like a native data type, it's an object. They're all different. Even though by looking at them they look the same, this isn't going to work. So one way we can test to see if it's an empty object is by checking to see if there's no keys, okay? Because an object, it's just key value, right? Just sets of key values. So to do that, we can use object.keys, and we'll pass in the object we're checking, which is track. Actually, we don't want this whole part right here. So we're checking these undefines, and then we're saying or object.keys track.length, because we can check the length. If it's equal to 0, then that means it's an empty object, okay? Or, and then let's just copy this because we want to do the same thing for lyrics, because lyrics is also an object. We just want to change this to lyrics, and I'll save that, and Prettier will format it. And that's what the if statement should look like. So it's just checking, whoops, I forgot to add equals 0. So it's just checking to make sure that it's not an empty object, and also that they're both defined. So let's see, we have our if here. We also want an else. So if it is an empty object, what do we want to do? We want to return our spinner, right? So let's say return our spinner component, which we need to bring in. So up here we'll say import spinner from, we want to go outside of the tracks folder into layout and then spinner. Okay, so we'll bring that in. And then else, let's just test it out first by returning an h1, and we'll just say data, returned. All right, so let's check it out. We get our spinner. When we get the data, there we go, data returned. Okay, so now let's replace this, data returned. We're going to just do some parentheses, and we're going to put in a React fragment. Okay, and let's see, inside this React fragment, we're going to have a card with all the data, but I also want a go back button. So we're going to need the link from React Router. So let's do, let's import from React Router DOM, and we want to import link. Okay, so now down here, let's put in a link tag, 2. Okay, 2 is just going to go to /, and then I'm just going to style it a little bit, give it a class name, or a couple class names, so btn dark, and let's do btn sm for small, and then mb4, so some margin on the bottom. Okay, and then inside here, we're going to just say go back. Okay, so now we have a go back button, and then underneath that, we'll go ahead and put our card. So let's put a class of card, class name, whatever. And inside here we'll have a card header class, and this is where it's going to say the song name by and then the artist name. Now remember, we can get the track info with our track and our state, and I don't have to do this .state.track because I use destructuring right here to pull it out, so we have access to just this track, and then we have access to all the data that it gives us. So track name is one of those. And then we'll just simply say by, and I'm actually going to do a span here. Let's do a span with the class of text dash secondary, which will just make it a little lighter. And then in here we'll put track dot and then artist underscore name. All right, so let's save that and let's go back. Okay, so You Say by Lauren Daigle. If we reload, you just see the spinner until the data comes back, and then it loads it. Good. Oops, what'd I do? Okay, so did I do the card header? No, the card header should actually be an H5. Thought that looked a little weird. So this should be an H5, this card header, not a div. So H5. Okay, and then underneath that H5, let's put a card body. Okay, so in this card body is going to be the lyrics, and I'm going to put this in a paragraph with the class of card-text. And then to get the lyrics, we have access to lyrics, and then it's going to be .lyrics_body. So if we save that, there they are. Okay, and again, we're not going to see all of them because we're using the free account. So under that, I just want to put an unordered list with some stuff like the what are we putting? The album ID, although that's not really helpful, but just to put some other stuff that's available, the song genre, stuff like that. So let's go under the right here. So UL will do a list group class, and let's do a MT3, so margin top 3, just to move the stuff above it up, and then we'll do an LI class of list item. This is just bootstrap list item group. I'm sorry, list group item. And in here, the first one, let's do an album ID. I'm going to put this in a strong tag. So I'll say album ID. And let's put a colon. And then we can get this using track.album ID. Okay, let's put another list group item. So we'll just copy that down. Now this one is going to be the song genre, which is kind of tricky to get to, and I'll show you why. If I go ahead and console.log track, let's take a look at the response. Okay, so we have primary genres. If we look in that, we have an array called music genre list. If we look in that, we have an object that has another object called music genre. And in there, we have music genre name. Okay, so we have to get to this music genre name. So this is going to be quite, quite deep in the data structure. So we want to do track dot, and we want to do primary underscore genres. Okay, then we want to go into music genre list, which is an array. Okay, so it's an array. We want the first item, so the 0 index. Then we want the music underscore genre, and then that's an object. And inside that object, we want the music underscore genre underscore name. Okay, and let's change the label here. So this should be song genre. Okay, let's try that out. And there we go, Christian and gospel. Alternative. All right, cool. And we can get rid of that console log now, which is right here. Okay, so what else do I want to do? I want to do explicit words. Now, it's going to give us a 1 or a 0, so we just need to do a little conditional. So let's add a list group item. And let's go ahead and put in an expression here. So we want our curly braces. We're going to say if track.explicit is equal to 0, then we're using a ternary operator here. Then we want to output the string of no, else, which we use colon, then we want to say yes. Okay, and then the last thing we want to put is the release date. So I'm going to say, actually I can just go ahead and copy this. So we'll copy this down, and let's see how we're going to do this. We're going to put Oh, I didn't. Did I put a label for the explicit? I didn't, did I? Right here, we're going to put a strong tag and say explicit words, like that. All right, so right here, let's do strong, and this is going to be the release date. Okay, so release date, and we can get that with track dot what is it? First underscore release underscore date. All right, let's check all that out. All right, so alternative, explicit words, no. All right, now release date, we're getting it, but it's very ugly looking. I just want it to be like the month, day, year. So I'm actually going to install Moment, which is a time formatting package, and then React Moment to work with it in React. So I'm going to just stop the server real quick and say npm install Moment and also React-Moment. And the Moment is a very handy tool and very easy to use, as you'll see, when you want to format dates in basically any way you want. So we'll start our server back up. Yes. All right, so let's go back to VS Code. Now we need to bring in Moment from React Moment. So up here we'll say import from React Moment. And we want to bring in, we're going to call it Moment, like that. And then down where we have the date, okay, so down where we have the release date, we just want to wrap this, which is the date, inside of a tag of Moment, like that. Okay, and then I want to format this in a certain way, so we're going to add a format property here, and we're going to set it to, you can do whatever you want. I'm going to do month slash day slash year. So four character year. All right, let's see if that works. We'll save it, go back. There we go, 7/16/2018. Awesome. So that's our lyrics page. Cool. So let's see, what do we have left to do? Of course, the search. So we need to create the whole search component, and then we need to create some way to manipulate the state that's in the context. So basically talking about these tracks, so that when we search for a song name, this updates with the response. So that's what we're going to do in the next video, and I will see you then.